It's got plenty of poke for what you might need driving around town. Almost useless how slow that is to respond. The amount of space you get is excellent overall. There is yet another Chinese electric SUV in the Aussie market. This is the Geely EX5, but it does have an important difference to the others out there because this is the cheapest. You're looking at a medium SUV that's well under 50 grand, but you get a whole lot of gear for that money. Is it worth it? Is it any good? Let's find out. If you haven't heard of Geely before in Australia, don't worry. This is a relatively new brand and it is mostly unknown. However, it's not some small startup either. Despite being in the car game for around 28 years, Geely today makes over 3.3 million cars per year. Now for reference, Nissan makes around 3.2 million cars per year globally, and Holden, when it was in business, made around 7.7 million cars in the entire duration of that company. It also owns most of Volvo, just over half of Lotus, and has a string of sub-brands under it, like Zeekr, Lynk & Co, Radar, and the London Electric Vehicle Company. The EX5 is a fully electric medium SUV from Geely, and it is similar in size to Australia's most popular midsize SUV, the Toyota RAV4. It's priced from $44,990 plus on-road costs in this top spec form, which makes it the cheapest electric medium SUV by some margin in Australia and competitive on price with a lot of hybrid and internal combustion vehicles. And if you want to make it even cheaper again, you can opt for the complete trim level at $40,990 plus on roads. Unlike that rampantly popular RAV4, however, we've got a fully electric powertrain here, which comprises of a single electric motor at the front, which has a respectable 160 kilowatts and 320 newton meters of output. There's also a 60.22 kilowatt hour battery. This makes the EX5 front-wheel drive only and gives it a claimed driving range of 410 kilometers. DC charging can be as quick as 25 minutes from 10 to 80% if you're on a 100 kilowatt charger, but slower AC charging on an 11 kilowatt charger will be over 5 hours. There's also LED lighting at both ends of this vehicle on the outside, along with automatic wipers and headlights. There's privacy glass, parking sensors front and rear, and 19-inch alloy wheels. Not too bad all in all for the asking price. I feel a little bit sorry for people looking at this medium SUV segment because there is an overwhelming number of options to look at. Powertrains, technology, new brands coming into Australia. It is hard to figure out what's what, but one thing that can help is Drive Marketplace because there are new cars on there, there are second-hand cars as well, and you might even be able to get yourself a deal on there, so it's worth checking out. The major advantage of this EX5 is undoubtedly how much kit you get for your asking price, especially in this Inspire model. Standard kit is extensive on this EX5 Inspire. It includes a 15.4-inch infotainment display and a 10.2-inch digital instrument cluster. There's also a 360-degree camera system and interior ambient lighting. Front seats are heated, electric, vented, and massaging, and the sound system is a 16-speaker unit, although performance of the audio, I've got to say, is not very good. The interior overall, it's modern and it is a design that you see a lot out of these new Chinese brands. It's got a big infotainment display which really dominates the dashboard here, but otherwise you haven't got too many buttons going on. The air vents are nicely integrated and you've got this floating center console here that has a bit of storage underneath. Now the cup holders are hiding in here. You do have some buttons for your very, very basic climate controls there, but otherwise a lot of your functions actually operate through this infotainment display. So opening and closing the sunroof, for example, a lot of the more considered, I suppose, climate control functions, they are buried in here. So you do need to get to know where things are in this infotainment display. It's not too bad, but it's also not fantastic either. It's not necessarily the easiest or fastest to respond system. So it can feel a bit laggy at times, trying to figure out where it's going if you're asking it to do a little bit too much, I suppose, in one go. And one thing to note as well with this is that we don't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto here. So if you want to just plug your phone in and use that, unfortunately, you cannot. Now, we do have a volume knob here, which is really handy, but there is a problem with it. It's extremely slow. So I've got it muted down at the moment. Let's say I want to be driving along and I want to turn it up to the loudest possible. Let me just... There we go. That took about 40 inputs, I think. I wasn't counting, but an incredibly long amount of time. Now, if I speed things up and run it right down, it doesn't seem to go any faster. It's almost useless how slow that is to respond. It's a good feature, but poorly implemented. One thing that is better though, storage under here, that does work well. You've got USB, USB-C and 12 volt power there, decent sized center console and a wireless charging pad. That all works pretty well, but one of the big features, of course, is the seats in this model. So we've got heating, we've got venting, we've got massage as well. We've got a fairly interesting shape on this steering wheel here with a flat top and bottom. Now this digital cluster in front of me here, that is a bit laggy as well, but it looks fresh, it looks nice, especially once again for the asking price. This is an impressive vehicle in terms of the equipment, interior ambient lighting as well. So it presents really well. It's got a lot of showroom appeal, this car, but some things, when you scratch a little bit deeper, you can notice where they've cut a few corners and that sort of thing. So if you're happy with how it looks and how it performs, that's great. But if you are a little bit more particular with your details, you might be disappointed. Here's the second row of the EX5, and as you would expect for a medium electric SUV, the amount of space you get is excellent overall. I've got plenty of legroom here. That's my driving position in front. I'm around 1.8 meters tall, just under 6 foot in the old money, and I've got lots of legroom there. My toes can go under the seat in front. This seating position is relatively low as well, so even though I've got a sunroof here, there's plenty of headroom, and the seat is reasonably flat, but quite soft and cushy, and there's a fair amount of rake available there. Now, you can feel as I move around, the whole car is shifting. This thing is softly sprung. I'll get to the driving impressions a little bit later, but in terms of the seating position, the comfort, it is good. I've got air vents here, I've got USB A and C power outlets, drop-down armrest with a cup holder, all of the usual suspects there, and something that's a little bit different for an electric car in this day and age, actual mechanical door handles, not one of these funny buttons or trick modern things. It's an old-fashioned handle. It's actually not a bad thing. It works. Now this Inspire model of the EX5 does have an electric tailgate. The entry-level model does not. Now I'm hiding under here at the moment because it's raining, and the cameraman, well, he's not. He's standing out in the rain, the poor fella. But what I want to talk about is the boot here. You've got a 302-litre boot, which is probably a bit on the small side for a medium SUV. It's not too bad, but you do have a floor that can be removed and it can be placed into a lower position, which is handy. That means you don't have a flat floor here, but it does give you a bit more load height, obviously. But of course, you've also got a big space down in here. Now, if you use all of this boot space in its entirety, you've got 410 litres, which is a bit better. And that's actually pretty usable for things like bags and whatnot. You've also got a little nook on the side here for storing things. That is your tyre repair kit, because we don't have a spare wheel in this EX5. So good luck using that if you do get a big slash in your tyre. But if you do use this big area under here, take note, this does have a maximum 35 kilogram rating here, because it's just plastic. It's just a plastic case there. It's plastic on the other side as well. So maybe don't overload it too much, because everything might fall out maybe. But that's the boot. Not too bad. Definitely not the best in the segment, but probably good enough, I would say, for most people. The driving experience of this EX5 is, for the most part, pretty good, but it's definitely far from perfect. Let me start with some of the good points firstly. Of course, this is an electric car, so it is very quiet in operation. You don't have the powertrain noise that you would have associated with an internal combustion engine, of course. And the ride quality is quite soft, so it's pretty good. I'm going over some speed bumps at the moment. It soaks these up pretty well. And in terms of smaller imperfections on rougher surface roads, it does soak those up nicely and keeps the cabin fairly smooth. But once you start to get to rougher roads, you get to some bigger hits, or you'll get some consistent movements, you'll feel the body start to shift around. You can sense that lack of sophistication, I suppose, in the suspension tune in this Geely compared to others in the segment. It's just not as nicely polished overall. Of course, this isn't a sports car. It's not meant to be a sports car, but one issue that I would have there is if you're forced to do something like a swerve and recover, or you've got to put a big input into the steering wheel for whatever reason, this does feel a bit out of control. And because the steering inputs feel inconsistent, I just don't feel as comfortable as a driver in those situations. So one element, once again, where this car is for the most part fine, but just lacking that extra final bit of polish and sophistication that others in the segment have. Now we've got 160 kilowatts and 320 Newton meters through the front wheels here. Performance is pretty good. It's got plenty of poke, I think, for what you might need driving around town. Well, you'll notice though that when you're driving it and you give a big throttle input, they've intentionally put a bit of lag or a lack of response in there as it tries to dial that torque in instead of giving it one big heavy hit. Now they've done that to limit the amount of wheel spin that you get in this car. They haven't completely eliminated that though. You still get wheel spin in the wet like we are today especially, but also in the dry at times. So once again, it's just another example of where this car is fine, but you do have areas where other cars have probably ironed out those problems with a different suspension setup or things like that. But we don't have that in this case. Now, in terms of efficiency, this EX5 isn't as good as others out there, but it does go pretty close to matching the claim. So the average consumption claim is around the mid 16 kilowatt hour per 100 mark, and we're using 16.9, 17, something around that area. So the combined claim of around 410 kilometers is achievable, I think, in this car, depending on your driving habits. And efficiency, well, once again, it's not excellent, but it's probably good enough. It probably sounds like I'm trying to make excuses for this car. Now, I'm keeping in mind that this is a low-cost vehicle. It's an excellent value for money car, so I'm not going to expect it to drive like a BMW, I suppose. But the point I want to make is, if you are a bit more discerning as a driver, you will be probably disappointed with the way this vehicle drives. But if you don't particularly care, you just want a car that's literally just a car, and you're not that worried about the finer details, you might be happy with this. But take it for a test drive and really pay attention to those details of the steering inputs, the suspension, and the wind noise and all of that sort of thing. Because while you are getting a good value for money vehicle, that is where you are, I guess, getting the compromise of this car in comparison to something that is overall better, but also more expensive. In terms of safety, the Geely EX5 got a 5-star ANCAP score against stringent 2025 protocols. Now this includes an 86% protection rating for adult occupants and an 87% protection rating for child occupants. There is loads of safety equipment included in this EX5, and that gets an 85% rating according to that ANCAP testing. But we have to say, the traffic sign recognition can be a little bit noisy and inaccurate at times, which can be annoying when you're driving. Well, this EX5 is undoubtedly exceptional value for money. Considering the asking price of the car, the amount of metal you get for the money, and the standard inclusions, this does have a big advantage over others in the segment. However, once you start spending a bit of extra time with this car, you can see where those corners are cut. You can see where it doesn't have the polish of other more expensive models. So if that matters to you, if you like good sound system, you like a good handling car with good ride quality, you might not be completely happy with this EX5. So while it does undoubtedly represent really good value for money, it's going to depend upon you, the buyer, as to whether all of those smaller shortcomings add up to being important or less important, because there's better vehicles out there undoubtedly, and you don't have to look too far, but they're also more expensive. So if you're buying on value, 100%, give this a look. But if you want the quality of a better vehicle, you might need to spend up a little bit more. Now, if you want to see the benchmark electric medium SUV in the segment, check out this review here of the new Tesla Model Y by Alex. It's a great review and it's a good car, so that'll be a good comparison between these.